Your life experience, good or bad, is a gift when you share it with others. At Taxi Chronicles, we allow real riders with real stories to share their gift. So hopefully this episode will intrigue, enhance or inspire you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have interesting rider. I actually worked out his profession somewhat, and he's going to enlighten us to how he got into his profession and made the decision to change into another profession. So for those who are unhappy about their jobs, listen in, because if old Johnny can make the change, everybody can do it. No, not in a negative way. Just generally, we can all learn from somebody, so let's just let Johnny share his gift. Nice to have you here today, Johnny.
Hi, morning, thank you.
Okay, so tell us what it is you do, and tell us what you used to do.
Okay, so I work for a financial information technology company, or people might call it fintech company nowadays. I work for them as a financial kind of like sales / account manager, relationship manager, consultant. So I look after clients and help them solve problems and make their lives and their work lives easier, let's put it that way.
Okay. And what you used to do?
Well, we were just explaining that when I first graduated, one of my very first jobs was actually working in banking, where I was basically working with traders, supporting them with a eventual career path, which would lead me to become a trader myself, or a financial services salesperson within banking.
Okay, that's good. What is it that made you want to change?
So we was just explaining how, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, most people who were studying business studies at university had a kind of like aspiration to enter into finance and become, work in banking. And that was also one of my initial kind of like dreams. But after like a year or so working for some very big like American and European banks, I just found it wasn't the career I wanted actually. Because most of the time when you're a trader, you're sitting in front of a computer screen monitoring markets. And I think it was a combination of the time I entered the industry, because it was just like within 6 months of me starting my first job, there was back in the time what was called the Russian ruble crisis, where the market crashed. And then nothing happened for the next 6 or 9 months. And everyone who studied so hard and got into this profession was sitting there playing computer games. And I just felt like it was kind of like a waste of my time. There wasn't any aspiration in terms of like, even if I got to do what they were doing, I don't think it was something I would enjoy, because there was lack of human interaction. You're just sitting in front of a screen, monitoring numbers, trading day in, day out. I enjoy working with people, and that's when I decided I wanted to change career, go to a recruitment agent, and basically just discuss what other roles I can do. Like pretty much like, can you get me out of this job, please?
Okay, that's great. What would you say to somebody who's considering to change but is a bit wary of changing their career?
I'd say just keep an open mind about it. I think making a change is quite a big thing, and obviously quite scary, because you don't know what happens, obviously, certainly when you're doing a career change. So that's it. It takes a lot of courage. But key thing is just to say, keep an open mind. You don't know what the next thing will offer you, and if it doesn't work out, you can always try and find another way round to something else. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Like, go and speak to someone, in my case a recruitment agent, and they offered me to speak to my current employers, who at the time I wasn't sure about, but after a number of interviews I spoke to the right person, I guess, who opened my eyes in terms of what this job entails, what it can offer. And yeah, I've been with them now over 20 years.
Oh, really? Okay. You don't look that. You don't look that old. Okay. Okay. That's an eye opener for me there. Okay. As a child, what kind of person were you? An introvert, extrovert?
I would say I was an introvert. I was very quiet. I was very shy. I think there's a number of things, I think, which is relevant to the current era of like things like mental health and stuff. I wouldn't say I had mental health, but certainly I grew up in a single parent family in London. My parents weren't British, they were immigrants who came to this country. And I grew up at home pretty much with a different mother tongue, let's say. So I went to school, didn't really speak English. Everything was learnt from school. And I think earlier you were asking me if I went to boarding school, because it sounded like I'm a person who might have benefited from the upper echelons of like education. But the funny thing was, as I was saying, I just went to a very standard comprehensive school in Lambeth, and I guess I just got my head down, worked hard, and got on with it. But to answer your question, I was a very shy child, because my parents split. There were problems at home which kind of affected you as well, and I don't know what else I can say, really.
Okay, no problem on that one. What would you say you've learned about living life and the industries you're in that you wish you knew when you had started?
So you mean wishing I knew?
So what would you say you've learned? Now, your experience that you wish you knew when you had started your career, or just your life in general, and the journey you're in?
Yeah, I think what would have been quite useful was when I was younger. So I'm talking about even when we're going back to when we were teens, and definitely before I graduated. So I think if someone had guided me when I was younger to understand that, as a child, you've got your summer holidays at 6 weeks, rather than sitting at home messing around doing nothing. If someone was able to guide me and say, well, why don't you go and do something, go and work something and learn new skills and open up your eyes to possible opportunities, I think that would have helped me a lot in learning much quicker, like, away from academic, away from education, what the real life is like. And it doesn't matter what job it is. You can be working in a restaurant, you can be like doing voluntary work, whatever. But I think those kind of life experiences really opens up your horizon to, all the kinds of things which are possible out there. And like I said, like even things like voluntary work, how you can go and help people. It could be going to, I don't know, like volunteering at a school or at a nursing home or somewhere, or even going around doing stuff for your local community. I think those kind of things will open up and help you to understand what's possible out there.
Also, you're saying give yourself a sense of purpose.
Yes, and the focus, and like I said, if I consider like my childhood when I was growing up, some holidays I was just sitting indoors watching TV, didn't do much. But through my job where I travelled a lot and I've seen other cultures, I noticed in some other cultures, certainly what I call the emerging markets, where their kids are very, very ambitious in the sense that, during some of these kids who are 16, 17, 18, 19, during their school terms, they're already going out there thinking about how to build experience, build knowledge, and obviously leverage them so that when they do eventually graduate, it's not just a piece of paper of all their academic achievements and what they got in GCSEs, A-levels, or whatever you call them nowadays, but they also have all these skill sets of what they've done, even if it's like 3 months here, 6 months there. And I think nowadays prospective employers look at those skills a lot more, to basically build a picture on what this person is, what they're like, rather than just, your A grade, A star grade, and so forth. So I would definitely encourage anyone, especially youngsters, to think about, what can you do, and how can you build your kind of like life experiences.
Okay, that's interesting. What does the future hold for you?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, joking aside, last week I was on holiday in South Devon, and I fell in love with the place. And I came back, and the first thing I did was I said, I wonder how much does a property cost out there. And I simply went onto Rightmove and Googled Dartmouth, and I realised houses down there, or the ones I liked at least, overlooking the sea, can cost up to 3.5 million, 4 million or so forth. So I think I still have a long way to work hard before I can realise some of my aspirations in retiring by the sea or having a holiday home by the sea. So I guess I'll just continue to work hard, enjoy doing the job I enjoy doing, and see what happens, really.
Coming from a builder's aspect, buy the plot of land and build your own house. Serious. Work out
That's one possibility, yes.
Yeah, so think about it, work out. When I was living in Kenya, and to buy a house that someone had built where I was staying in Mombasa was very unusual. Everybody buys the land and builds their own house. So basically, everything about that house, and value-wise, up into the penny.
Right. Interesting, yeah.
There's no reason why you can't do that here.
Sure.
Do you see what I mean? It's not going to cost you 3.5 million to buy land and build a house.
That's true, actually, yeah.
See what I mean? It may cost you $500,000. I've built schools. We built a school in Wolverhampton Forest for $1 million. Now the fit out costs a lot more.
Sure.
You have all these computer gadgets and whiteboards and laser boards and all this stuff. But the school itself didn't cost that much money.
Interesting.
That was a demolition. So basically, we had the school, because the school was live as it is still working. We cut the playground, divided the playground from the school, put hoarding up, and built the school on the other side, and then moved the kids into the school, and then demolished the school, existing school, and turned it into a playground.
Yeah, okay.
And that structural works as $1 million.
Yeah.
So,
Sure. That's an interesting angle, yes.
And also, if you do those open plan houses styles, beams and columns, and then you have big bay windows, big glass curtain wall windows, to let in all the lights, heat up the day, heat up the house during the morning, so if they're facing to where the sun rises in the east, facing to the east.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can build it exactly how you want it.
Right.
Affordable cost.
Sure. Okay, interesting.
A year from now, Johnny, I expect to hear that you're on the progress building your house.
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay. You've been a great guest, Johnny.
Thank you.
My last question to you is, what's the impact you want to have in the world?
So it's a strange one, because I always, I don't know whether it's to do with my star sign. I'm an Aquarius, and I don't really believe in astrology and all that, but I think certainly one aspect of my character, which is quite in line with my star sign, is I always like to kind of give back to society or help. And even in my kind of profession, what I do is always helping my clients solve their problems and make their lives easier, so to speak. So I think my impact is, or what the impact I'd like to have, I guess, is if I can do more things to help people. No, I wouldn't like to go as far as saying make the world a better place. I think that's a bit too grand a statement, but I think you understand where I'm trying to get to. Okay. Yeah, if I can continue to help people, do things which will benefit people, I think that will give me a lot of satisfaction, whether it's in the professional sense, the work I do. Like one example is one of the many jobs which I had in my current work in the past involved traveling out to the emerging markets. And one of the country I used to cover back in the late, I think it would have been early 2000s, or late 2010s, entered into a conflict with one of its neighbours. So they were literally having an open war. It's quite well publicised. If people Google around 2008, which countries were having wars and neighbouring with each other. But anyway, the point was, I was looking after the national bank of the smaller country, which was suffering, and I was calling them up one day as part of one of our client sales campaigns, trying to promote products and services to them. And this client basically said to me, look, if you're just trying to sell me another box, I've got no interest in. But you know what's happened between our country and our neighbour? Our economy is now in ruin. We now have loans from the IMF to help us rebuild. And what we need is a technology solution that can help us to auction those loans to our primary dealers, i.e. the 16 biggest banks in our market. So if you can give me a solution that can do that, so that we don't need to build a system ourselves, which will cost us millions, and obviously we're a bank, we're a national bank, we're not a technology company, then we will consider looking at your services. So we went back and explored what we can do. We took some of the solutions we were originally positioning to them, and we made some improvements to them. And after a 6-month testing period, it basically fitted their criteria. We built in their calculations, the methodology. And the bottom line to this long story is, after a year or so, because one of the funny things, I remember one of the funny conversations I had with this guy, who's quite senior. He actually sits on their bank's monetary policy committee. So he kind of sits on our equivalent to the Bank of England monetary policy committee that sets interest rates. Think of it like someone that senior. And one day he was calling me saying, when are you actually coming to see us? Because I was still waiting for them to sign the contracts. And he said, I know what you're thinking. You're a big American company. You probably think we're a small country, small potato. You don't care about our business. And I countered. I said, no, actually, it's not true. I said, we know this project means we can own your entire market and basically not a monopoly, but provide the services to all the banks that we currently don't have. And all we need to do is develop this stuff. So everyone cares about this project. So the guy then countered, so why are you not here then? And I said, literally, well, when are you going to sign the contracts? If you sign the contracts, I'll come over. And the guy literally says, I'll sign the contract on Monday. And then I said, I'll come on Tuesday. So it was one of those kind of conversations. And obviously I had to fly out there to see them. But to cut the story short, this guy is now one of my best friends. He shares the same birthday as me. We're Facebook friends. And we still wish each other birthdays each year. And the services which we helped implement in this particular country meant that all the financial services, trading, both what we call primary markets and secondary markets, so day-to-day as well, is now conducted on our company's platform and systems. It got to a point where they had a particular equivalent to a stock exchange, which used to do they used to do a certain role, but they didn't do it for a while. Because our system was so good, they pretty much turned around to the stock exchange and say, you guys can now close down because we don't need you anymore. This company is now doing what you're supposed to do. So someone was actually saying to me, do you realize you helped close down a stock exchange in this country? So again, I'm not saying what lasting legacy, but if you can do things to help improve and in this case improve a community's way of doing day-to-day business, I think that's quite a nice impact or legacy to leave behind.
That you were part of that.
Yes, and people still joke, because I don't cover this country anymore, but my friends still go out there, or colleagues I should say, who still go out there often and look after clients, and they kind of joke, your golden statue is still standing in the square. It's still being looked after for a while. Anyway. Joking aside.
You mentioned something about the Russian ruble crisis.
Yes.
Can you explain that in brief?
Yes, so I think that would have been going back to 1998. So what happens in the I remember going back to school, we were always told, like, the central bank, they never default on their loans and their debt obligations, because obviously the central banks of each country is always the lender of last resort. So they're the last people standing. Think of our financial crisis. Bank of England had to come and bail out people during the 2008 crisis. So going back to 1998, I think it was. So the Russian government, because I think it was 10 years before that, the Soviet Union had collapsed, the economy opened up, and they were doing, there were lots of changes. And along the process, if I remember correctly, because I was only still studying and just graduated, I think they accumulated lots of loans, which effectively they couldn't honour anymore. And then the Russian government had to default on their own, like, national debt, national bonds. And that caused huge impact in the financial markets, to such an extent that, certainly in my case, like, there were no new bonds coming into the marketplace, and people had nothing to do on their day-to-day job. So I was working with bond traders or fixed income traders. And they ended up playing computer games for like 6 months or 9 months on a day-to-day basis back in those days.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
We hope you liked that Taxi Chronicles interview. Don't forget to share and subscribe to get the latest episode. Ever considered investing in the continent with the fastest growing economies and population on Earth? The same continent that holds 30% of the world's known natural resources. Listen to our sister podcast, Africa Investor Stories, where you hear real investors with real stories from around the world share their experience of investing in Africa. We post Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. British Standard Time.